Commodore, my 64, my Commodore 64.
Hi there, and welcome to a Let's Type episode from the Commodore 64 Appreciation Society. This is a series where I type out a program from a computer magazine, this time a new one, and then when I finish typing it in, I play it. The Commodore 64, and retro computing in general, is having a moment right now. Commodore has relaunched, and the upcoming Commodore 64 Ultimate is due out in the fourth quarter of this year. And just as exciting, Compute's Gazette, one of the great magazines of the 80s, is back. It relaunched in July, complete with fresh type-ins for classic systems. I missed the announcement for the first issue, but got on board with the second, which came out in August. And so about a week ago, this was waiting for me in my mailbox. For the first time in over 35 years, I was holding a brand new copy of Compute, and just like the 80s, I was excited to crack it open. I wasn't disappointed. In amongst articles about various retro computing topics, this issue contains a type-in game for the 64 called Kodebreaker. I can't wait to get started typing it in old school with the magazine pages in front of me. So let's get started. Not the smoothest start. The very first line confused me. CLR is obvious, but I have no idea what they are expecting for dish and SWUK. The magazine guide doesn't mention anything. If this was 1986, I'd be screwed. But we fortunately have the internet now, and after a bit of searching, I was able to find the correct PETSCII codes online. Dish disables the Commodore key, and SWUK forces the 64's output to uppercase. I've never seen either of these, and to be honest, I'm not sure why the author felt the need to include them. But they are in the listing, so I wanted them in the program. Also, I needed to use something called the return reverse trick to enter the SWUK character. That was clunky. No wonder it wasn't used often. With that out of the way, let's talk about the next bit of weirdness. The code is all listed in lowercase. I've never seen that with a 64 program. Hopefully this doesn't mess up how shifted characters appear in the listing. But aside from that, the code listing is clear, as is their notation for special characters and things like multiple spaces. These little problems just seem like growing pains, and hopefully Compute's Gazette makes some adjustments going forward. Looking at the game, Kodebreaker actually isn't new. It's by Brad Van Horne and was originally released in 1985 by Gold Disc. It appears that Gold Disc was a low-budget publisher, but there is very little about them to be found online. If you remember anything about them, drop a comment. I'd love to learn more. Kodebreaker itself is a Mastermind clone, which was a board game I loved as a kid. In it, your goal is to crack a secret 4-color code. You make guesses and receive feedback about how many you have right. Using that information, you then try to crack the code within a certain number of turns. The board game is simple and addictive. Hopefully Kodebreaker captures that. Also, it does seem a bit odd to get an old game as the first 64 type-in from Compute's Gazette, but it also kind of makes sense. People haven't been submitting games to magazines for 35 years, but now that a couple issues have come out, maybe there are some people willing to dust off their programming chops and give it a try. Yep. Sure enough, I've run into a character that seems wrong due to the lowercase printing. The text shows an underscore character, which isn't really used on the 64. When I look at the PETSCII list, it says I can get this by pressing Shift and the @ symbol, which I'm able to do, but it doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone ever type this in during a game? Looking at the code around it, it's supposed to be an escape character of some sort. If you type it at the prompt, it just goes to line 10,000, which ends the program. There are multiple places in the code where this exact thing occurs. Definitely weird, but I'll keep it in for now and we'll see what happens. This program contains a really cool little subroutine to display text at a particular screen location. For example, check out this line. Before displaying the title of the game, X and Y values are set for where it should be displayed on screen. The subroutine then uses the print left function on 2 existing strings to go down Y rows and to go right X columns. So in this particular case, the subroutine would print 13 rights and 7 down characters before returning to print the line. It's a clever little function that saves a lot of manual typing down and right symbols, and also makes it really quick to precisely position text. I loved finding snippets like this and would incorporate them into my own code. Okay, we're getting to the end of the code here. Aside from those little underscore characters, everything else was straightforward. The lowercase did throw me off from time to time, but it was workable. All right, let's just save it. On disk, the game takes up 30 blocks, or about 7.5K. Let's run it. Okay, cool. The title screen looks good, but I'm pretty sure those characters in Brad Van Horne shouldn't be in reverse. I'm going to fix that first. Oh, much better. Here are the instructions. That second line doesn't look right. Press any key should be below the text. I probably goofed up the X and Y values for that subroutine. And yep, Y should be 22, not 2. Oh, that looks better. Let's get on with the game. All right, press P. And a type mismatch error. Let's take a look. Oh, I see. CP should be CP $sign. That's easy enough to fix. This seems like a good time to save. Okay, press P. Hey, and here's the game screen. Nice. Yes, let the computer pick the code. Oh, and I goofed up the colors at the bottom. Green is wrong. We'll select the colors. We're just taking a wild guess here. Yes, let's mark it. And syntax error in 1285. Take a look at that. Oh, and we're missing a T in print. All right, let's try that again. I fixed the green text in the menu as well. All right, let's play this through. I'll go with blue, green, white, and black. All right, so two of the colors are right, but they're in the wrong positions. And we can tell that based on the white pegs at the top. All right, let's mark that. Oh, now I've got three correct colors, and they're in the right position. So black, white, yellow, and let's just try red. Oh, hey, I won. Sure, I'll play again. Let's go with the computer this time. Oh, redimmed array error. Let's take a look. That looks the same as it is in the magazine. I'm going to take a step back and review the code. I went through the code and found a number of small errors, including a couple of bad variable names. One of the issues with having the code print in lowercase is that ones look a lot like L's. And sure enough, I made a couple mistakes with a variable that should have been CL $sign, but I had it as C1 $sign. And I figured out the underscore character thing, but I had to cheat. Compute Magazine was super helpful and sent me a disk image with the game on it. Looking at their code showed that the symbol displayed was a left arrow, or the key in the upper left corner of the 64 keyboard. I have no idea where the underscore came from, but that arrow key at least makes sense as being a way to end a game. If the code was printed in uppercase, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. But I feel like we're in good shape now, and hopeful that this batch of fixes takes care of things. But it didn't. I'm still getting that redimmed error when I try to play a new game, so obviously something is still wrong. Back to the drawing board. So, after a bit of head scratching, I've figured out the redimmed error. The code I've typed is correct, and the problem happens in my version as well as the one sent to me by Compute. The error occurs when I decide to play a new game and select C for computer. In that mode, the code runs through an initialization routine that includes 2 dim statements. The problem with dim statements, though, is that they can only be run once. Trying to define an array that already exists results in an error. Since at least one of those arrays is used in P mode, an error occurs when the dim statement tries to define it again. In other words, this error will happen anytime you decide to play again and select C mode. I hope that makes sense. The solution is actually really easy. I can just remove those 2 lines. Dim statements are only needed when the number of elements in an array is greater than 10, and in this case they aren't. I'm sure there are more elegant solutions, but deleting is easy, so let's just do that. I actually submitted this fix to Compute, and perhaps they'll issue a correction. 40 years seems like a long time to wait for a bug fix, but it still feels good to get it. With the problem solved, the game works great, and it's no wonder that it was chosen for publication. It plays exactly like a Mastermind game should, and the only thing missing is perhaps some sound, but that's a minor point. Solving the puzzles is a lot of fun, and I get that little dopamine hit of satisfaction when I get one. More importantly, it was a lot of fun typing it in and getting it working. It's always nice to resurrect an old title like this, and it's even better to fix a 40-year-old bug. And thanks to Compute's Gazette for restarting typed-in games. There's just something about getting a new magazine and typing it in old school that is really cool. I'm already looking forward to the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have any experiences with Kodebreaker or typing in your own programs, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Hope to see you again.